Minecraft Hardcore, infamously difficult. Over the years has claimed the worlds of many good players, much more skilled than I am. Even surviving 100 days in Hardcore is considered difficult, but not impossible. So let's add another challenge. Introducing RL Craft. This is an insane mod pack considered one of Minecraft's hardest. In fact, it's so difficult, it has a 100-page document dedicated to just not dying. So let's do both. 100 days in RL Craft Hardcore. Is it possible for someone with no experience in Hardcore or modded Minecraft? Let's see. So the first thing you need to know about RL Craft is that it's hard, like ridiculously hard. It's a little different to vanilla Minecraft, with more RPG elements. I was gonna have to be doing more exploring than mining, and a hell of a lot more crafting than usual. With the added requirements of temperature and thirst, as well as a leveling system, and updated progression system that makes vanilla look like a cakewalk, this was gonna be a challenge. The first thing we had to do was get flint tools. This would unlock the world for us. Although the leveling system means we can do basically nothing until we have the required specs on the skill tree. No iron, no tools, no weapons, and no armor. That was going to be a problem. Day 1 started off well. We were admiring the local flora and fauna. Things were looking up. I spent my time gathering resources, and things seemed pretty peaceful, though I knew around any corner danger would be lurking and our luck wasn't going to last. After crafting plant fibers to make string, we accessed a flint hatchet, which would allow us to chop down trees, an important part of the progression. I continued exploring, making food, and just surviving until we made it to day 2. Day 2, I found a village, which I promptly plundered. I even had diamonds and time to admire a dragon. Things were looking up, and I was feeling hopeful, but my luck wasn't gonna last. On day 3, disaster struck. As you can see, dying in RL Craft is ridiculously easy. So now we have our first rule, watch out for water. And we also have a high score, 3 days. Attempt 2. Attempt 2, right back at it. Would we have more luck this time? Well, we progressed quickly, finding a village and accessing stone tools. But the luck didn't last. Despite how good the outlook was, we faced some unfortunate problems. See if you can see where I went wrong. Now we know there are 2 ways water can kill you, and we have our second rule. Don't drink unfiltered water. Attempt 3. This one started off a bit rough. We were surrounded by enemies on all sides, and I was in dire straits until the first day I found the village and set to plundering it. There was a different feeling in the air. We were onto something. And by day 2, we had found a cozy home with a pet, started construction on some stairs. Day 3, we were exploring. We finished construction on the stairs and continued mining our new home, create some more space. Day 4, I went combat mode, testing out the bow, which you could only use after having level 2 agility. At the end of the day, I slept in a neighboring village. Day 5, I continued exploring the village, and on day 6 I returned home and decided to visit the castle in the sky. Fortunately, my dog was eaten by a giant water snake, which was very sad. So, to make up for it, we cheesed some XP from some spawners and fought some mobs. Returning home. Not before being attacked though. So on day 7, we slept off the damage we had sustained the previous night and awoke to some strange noises. It was death, but we killed him, and then In a rampage, we killed our dinosaur before learning it was peaceful. But I guess it was karma, because then we got accosted by a pixie. Day 8, 9, and 10 were all spent getting upgrades and exploring, while also committing some mild eco-terrorism. I was starting to feel confident, which I guess portends the worst in RL craft. But we got a backpack, so who can complain? So on day 11, 12, and 13, I took to mining. Things were going well. We were gaining experience through mining coal, but then this happened. This one sucked. We had progressed so far. There was no giving up now. Just had to keep going with a new record of 13 days and a new rule. Stay out of the dark. The next few attempts taught me some rules, mainly around the danger of mining ores. It was definitely a surprise. Now we have another one. No mining ores without a shield. But for attempt 7, I decided to be cautious. Being stupid had cost me some really good runs. So I spent days building a large fence around an entire village. I also took the time to create a pen for sheep to have a safer way of farming XP, better than using ore, as well as making a large wheat farm to supply the sheep. This was slower than mining, but also safer, though it had its own challenges. And around day 14 I started getting antsy, looking for adventure again, and running some unneeded risks. Early on I had noticed a flying castle, and from attempt 3 I knew that if I could access it, the XP could be a serious boon to an otherwise stagnant run. I decided to bridge over, being aware of Rule 1, but quickly noticed I was in the presence of someone called Bruce. Luckily fate spared me this time, and I made it to the castle in one piece. That's where I began plundering like a good pirate. My main goal wasn't loot, but XP. So I decided to dig underneath the castle to farm mobs. But I started running into some elementals who had other plans for me. Things seemed to be under control when, out of nowhere, I don't know what this was supposed to teach us, other than not being greedy, but it was another tough loss, and from then on I decided to only record the best runs for maximum efficiency. And on attempt 24, I was on a roll. It was the middle of summer, and I was in a savanna biome, which meant everything, gathering wood, mining, fighting, and leveling up was 10 times harder. I basically had to jump in a puddle of water every few seconds. But despite this, we continued constructing our new compound. Yeah, that scared the f*** out of me. As you can see, everything in this mod can kill you, even grass. I spent day 24 gathering materials and creating a lesser equipment forge. Although the item I made was kinda useless, it was still worth exploring what this mod had to offer. Despite the heat, I continued mining and building. On day 27, I started construction on an underground bunker and a proper house to live in. And on day 28, I went exploring and discovered something that looked like a Tower of Babel. But again, I found a village but had to leave, less risk hypothermia. I continued leveling up. And we finally tamed, saddled, and armored up a new horse. By the next day, we took our new horse exploring and stumbled upon a plains biome finally, and a deposit of rare ores. However, we had to be careful in case a geonash spawned. The diamond and emeralds were worth the risk. Eventually, a geonash did spawn, a rare one. However, by using a bow and a horse, we strafed the geonash, and we took him down eventually. I kept exploring and found a village or fortress, choosing to spend the night to prepare to keep exploring. Day 31, we kept exploring again, finding more structures and fighting more mobs, and using the horse for safety. It proved an effective strategy. Slowly I was building up confidence fighting mobs like Joust. Day 34, I found another structure that looked like it would contain some good loot. However, we had to fight some mobs to get in. The effort was fruitful, because it contained blocks of iron and diamond, which would be vital in the future. Day 38, we returned home, and summer was just ending. Day 40, I found a castle in the sky, decided it would be fruitful to mine its spawners and mobs for experience to level up attack, because I wanted to use a diamond sword. After defeating the castle, I discovered a jungle biome, and knowing there would be some great loot and structures, we entered in. First we encountered a villager camp which gave us some useful healing supplies. We found another structure with some strong mobs, and I was feeling confident until a baboon started throwing poop on me. But I didn't give up, and finally we burrowed him down and took to clearing the structure for XP. Day 41 and 42 we finally decided to make our way home and continue building. However, an event called Sub-Zero began, and I had to make evasive maneuvers. These elementals were dangerous, and I couldn't afford them hitting me. By day 46 we were back clearing out the ore deposit. Emeralds were our main way of gaining XP through trading with villagers, so we couldn't leave them. 48, I returned home, looking at baubles that may give us a boost. Day 50, I explored another village when a blood moon started, so I decided to hide deep underground until it passed over. We were halfway through the challenge now and the mod pack wasn't pulling any punches. After waiting out the blood moon successfully, I exited the bunker and fought an annoying incarnation of death. Here was scary, and our head got down to half a heart because he was floating above me, but we eventually got away safely. Day 52 I was exploring again, looking for more structures, and trying to bring my horse home. However, we were unsuccessful, and returned home day 54 horseless, because the pack glitched and despawned. That was a major blow, given how important he was. However, I had come across purple mushrooms, which gave me defilement powder. With this I could turn iron ore into umbrium ore, which would give me a set that would give me boosts to strength and poison resistance. Despite the fact it was less powerful than diamond armor, it was worth getting, because it had lower requirements. We searched near our base for more iron, using the defilement powder to mine it. Ever careful that a geonash could spawn, I was extremely cautious. Eventually on day 55 I had enough for a full set, however we weren't lucky with the rolls and got very low quality. What we had to do next would be making reforging stations to change the quality. However, before we could do this, we suffered another blood moon, and the base was damaged severely. However, I had to keep going. So after surveying the damage, I did some farming. Day 60, I found a desert structure that was extremely dangerous. However, it had a large amount of mobs and spawners that could be destroyed for huge XP. We even got our first bauble, a potion ring that could be modified for more effects like jump boost and permanent haste. Day 61, I finished the reforging station and improved the Umbrium armor through using the spare ingots I had. After this, our set was going to function much better. Day 62, we kept farming structures for XP to prepare for enchanting. These structures gave me an insane amount of loot and XP, and if treated carefully, I could easily sneak through it unscathed, or only slightly scathed. I ran into an elemental skeleton, which, while obviously more dangerous, also dropped crazy XP and loot. We also got a permanent speed bauble, which would come in extremely handy. Day 63 we returned home before attempting a battle tower. However, I was quickly swarmed by an elemental and a blight spider, which had the chance of one-tapping me if I wasn't careful. I returned the next day when this happened. No fucking way. Yeah, this was too close. It could have been the end for us. However, I couldn't allow myself to be deterred, and started making progress using our newly enchanted sword. The going was tough, and our head health got low a few times, but by using a medkit and being cautious, I started making advances. Day 65, we checked out some more structures. Day 75, 25 days left. As you can see, it is now the middle of winter. Been doing some grinding, picked up a wither skull somehow. Fixed up the cows, got us some cows finally. Now it is time to repair the rest of the base. In the final 25 days, I want us looking spick and span. Day 75, we only had 25 left, so I decided to make some goals for our last few days. Fix buildings. Make god bow. Fully enchant gear. There was also one secret goal, but I'm not going to spoil it yet. We continued rebuilding the base, replacing the floor with cobble, so I didn't have to risk any more grass elementals. However, by day 78, it was the peak of winter, so I had to quickly gather wool to craft woolen clothes, so that the going would not be so painfully slow.
Okay, with this wool, we should be able to craft a bunch of wool clothes.
Without it, I would have had to spend 24/7 next to costly bonfires. With this new armor, I could continue building without having to worry about the cold. Day 79, I did some mining and continued building. I also harvested wood for the outer walls. I fed and culled cows for XP, and day 80 we continued building even further. Progress was promising and I was feeling good. However, as is usual with this mod, disaster struck again. The house was burned down completely, and there was nothing I could do to save it. Then, as nothing is ever simple in RL Craft, some fire elementals spawned. I wasn't ready to face cinders yet, so I ran, hoping they would de-aggro and despawn. We made it out safe, and discovered the Silex which drops Lapis. This would be super important for enchanting. So I built a farm and farmed some more emeralds for XP using our fortune pickaxe. We fully constructed an enchanting setup and day 84 started gathering XP to get level 30. We continued building our house yet again, not letting anything demoralize us. In this mod pack, farming is great for XP, so we relied on that and our crafting specialty to give us a huge amount of levels. I actually spent a large amount of time building levers, which gave me 2 levels for every stack I crafted. By 85, I was also feeling cautiously confident about mining coal, and when I returned to harvest our wheat, this happened. Now we can see the importance of my safe farming strategy. Day 86 we farmed the cows again. By day 87 I was fully enchanted with a new crossbow. By day 90 I was searching a defiled biome for golden bookworms to make a disenchantment table to reforge some of my items. This biome was dangerous, but we were well prepared, and after defeating a geonash we gathered some more umbrium. I continued fighting jousts while looking for the golden bookworm, and had a pretty close call with this alpha. The first day I didn't have much luck, and while I was waiting out the night in a house, I was attacked by a bunch of new mobs which I hadn't seen previously. Day 91 I kept searching, but unfortunately we had no luck. Day 93 we made it home and began preparing for a final challenge. I farmed some more structures like this pirate ship which had a ton of spawners to mine for XP. Day 95 was more of the same, finding more structures and spawners. This gave us a huge amount of materials and XP for reaching day 100. I constructed some bolts for my crossbow and gave it a try when this happened. Yeah, so we weren't fighting that. I hid out in the bunker until day 96, where I pulled a runner. I used a waystone to despawn the elemental, and later on constructed a bow to supplement the expensive bolts of the crossbow. I got some okay enchantments as well, and we only had 4 days left. Day 97 I faced another event, pulling out my age-old strategy of digging a hole in the ground, and our new multi-shot bow to take down the flying mob. We handled it fine. Now, I will finally clue you in on the final challenge. We were going to take on one of the strongest early game bosses in this game, a dragon. By day 99, I had set up a structure and located an emerald dragon. Using the crossbow, I was cautious to only shoot from a long range. However, we were running out of ammunition, and I had to kill the dragon before any other mobs spawned. This was it for the final challenge. If we died here, it would have all been for nothing.
Jesus.
Oh my god. So after pausing for a day to gather more feathers for crossbow bolts, this happened.
There he is, and day 100. No way. No way. Dragon scales, emerald, dragon scales. Defense level 24. There we go, 100 days. It is possible.
This has definitely been the hardest experience I've ever had in Minecraft. After 24 attempts, this game almost beat me several times.
Finally.
Thank you for watching. Maybe like and subscribe if you liked it. Who knows? Maybe I'll do 200 days.